This is Scott from RichardMetalFan, and you're watching RichardMetalFan.
So what's up, guys? Episode 122 of RichardMetalFan interviews here at the Masquerade Land, Georgia, and I'm on the tour bus. Within we have vocalist Scott Kennedy. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing pretty well. I know you're 3 shows into your first ever U.S. tour right now. It's an awesome bill. August Burns Red, Devil Wears Prada, and of course Bleed From Within. How's the tour been going so far?
Obviously, we've only played 2 shows, but they have been so much better than we expected. Like, obviously, as our first time in the States, we thought we would be coming here and no one would know who we were. But it's been honestly the complete opposite. Like, so many people in the crowd singing the words, people coming every night on tour. We always go and hang out at the merch table and just meet everyone, and so many people saying they've been waiting like 10 years for us to come and stuff. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, and I thought we would never come to the States. Now when I first saw it, I was like, I'm going.
Yeah,
because who knew if y'all would ever come back, and this is my chance.
Yeah. It's definitely been. We've been trying to come for a long time, but it's just the stars haven't aligned. But this tour is just honestly like it's the perfect first tour for us to be in the States. It's the perfect tour for us to be in the States. Never mind the first tour.
Awesome. So kind of what I want to do is I want to do like a rundown of your catalog. Let's talk about also like your journey as an artist from where you started now. But take me back to the beginning. Take me back to young Scott Kennedy. What were like the first bands that got you into metal and made you want to be a vocalist?
I think the one that first comes to mind would be Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. Like, when we first started, we are still to this day, we love that band so much, and they were like a major influence on our like sound back in the early days. And yeah, I think that's just like them. Pantera were a big influence when we were young. Trying to think, like the new wave of American metal was like the one like Chimera, Lamb of God. Who else? Guns just walked in.
Yeah,
The Haunted, Soilwork, like loads of bands like that.
Yeah,
just
like Swedish Melodeath is awesome.
Yeah, that was like that played a big part in our like growing up as well.
Yeah, and so how did Bleed From Within form? Because you all formed 2005. How did you get to know like Ali and the rest of the guys?
We all used to go to a music. What would you call that? Youth club. We used to go to a youth club when we were younger. Like me and David, our bass player, we went to school. We went to high school. We've known each other since we were like children, and we started to go to this youth club where like they were teaching you how to record music and stuff like that, and then the band just formed from that. It was actually 2004 we started, but we played our first show in 2005.
So of course next year will be like 20 years of being in the band.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
And you gotta do like a celebration somehow.
Yeah.
Like, August Burns Red is doing this 20-year tour. You could see Bleed From Within do a 20-year tour.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the 20th year of their first album, is it not?
Well, no, their first album came out in 2005, but this is their 20th year of being as a band.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll do something like that. Yeah. I feel like our early days, though, we kind of, like, me personally, I'm not so proud of the music we released back then, but again, we were kids, so it's definitely an achievement to get this far into a career, for sure.
Awesome. And tell me about like your first demo, which was called Into the Eyes of the Forgotten.
In the Eyes of the Forgotten, yeah, that was
very raw sounding. Where was that recorded at?
That was recorded in that youth club I was talking about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like we were so young when we did that, man. Like, I honestly barely even remember back like that time of my life. It was just so long ago. I couldn't even tell you the name of one of the songs.
Yeah. I know it's up on YouTube. I've listened to it. It's just it sounds very aggressive, and you sound like fucking pissed off.
Well, yeah, we're pissed off kids.
Right, and then your first EP, Welcome to the Plague Year.
Yeah.
I love this EP. I think it's a great sign to come. I feel like it's like the sort of the next evolving from that demo. Tell me about the making of this.
That was also, I'm sure, I could be wrong. Can I see you 1 second? I feel like it's so cool that you have this. I think this was also maybe recorded in that youth club. Yeah, I think this was recorded in a place in Shettleston in Glasgow. Yeah, I barely remember this time as well, man. Yeah, that was so.
But this actually sounds just very deathcore like
Yeah.
compared to like this to of course now with Shrine. Shrine, how do you feel about like the not to pigeonhole deathcore kind of style? I know that you were kind of like pigeonholed.
I feel like back when we did that, deathcore, like, I don't remember deathcore being a thing. Like, I don't remember hearing that term back then. But I'm not saying we invented deathcore, because we certainly did not. I just don't think that was the sound we were trying to go for, and like even to the day, like our influences are not, they don't really come from that genre. Although there is a few bands in that genre I do really like. Like, I feel like bands that pioneered that were like Suicide Silence, Whitechapel.
Yeah,
Yeah, Carnifex.
Scott Lewis.
Scott E, is it?
Lewis.
Scott Lewis. Scott Ian Lewis. I was getting confused with Scott Ian from Anthrax.
Another great guy.
Yeah.
But then, of course, eventually, I guess you're playing around UK, and then you dropped your debut full-length, Humanity.
Yeah.
I love this. One of the best debut albums ever. Like, tell me about like the thought process making the debut album.
I feel like that's when it all started. When we released this album, that's kind of where I view the band beginning. Like, because this was just, these like EPs and stuff were just like us trying to write music and learning a lot from that process, and then that's when it sort of started. Yeah, I was super proud of this album when we released it, but obviously, again, it was a long time ago. And
yeah, and I remember seeing like one review of that.
What up, dude?
Sounds like we got interrupted again.
Yeah, we're always getting interrupted. Can you
Hey, we're doing it.
Sorry.
That happens at interviews, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but I remember seeing one review of Humanity. Somebody described it as "Bring me the horizon with balls."
Really?
Yeah, I think that's. It almost kind of, with Humanity, almost has a little bit of a Black Dahlia murder vibe.
Well, that was definitely a huge, like, they were definitely a huge influence on us back then, especially me. Like, I remember roughly about the time when we were recording that album, the Black Dahlia Murder were my favourite band ever.
Yeah, they're like one of my favorites that got me into like death metal. It's like
Yeah.
when I was like 15 years old.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor was a huge influence on me growing up. He is one of the main reasons, like, that I probably sound the way I do today, because it just inspired me so much. He was like genuinely one of my all-time heroes. He's going to definitely be in the top 5 of people that I was mostly influenced by.
Yeah, have you ever did like shows with Black Dahlia Murder?
Yeah, like way back then, the first time they ever came to Glasgow, we were lucky enough to support them, and then they came back, I think maybe 2006 or something maybe. I could be wrong on the date, don't quote me on that, but yeah, very early days into our career, like roughly about the time Humanity coming out, maybe just before, then we supported them like three or four times in Glasgow, and we became quite friendly with them, and they started, I don't remember what album it was on, I believe it was maybe Nocturnal was the first one, but they started to thank Bleed From Within in the booklet.
Yeah, I think so.
That was, I remember back then, that was like the biggest thing in my world.
Yeah, because I know they had Death Ray that came out that same year that Humanity did.
Ah, okay, so maybe it was definitely, it was the first, but I'm sure they did Nocturnal, because we must have played with them long before Humanity came out then, because like really early days.
Yeah, but then the next album, Empire, I love this album. Usually with the debut album, you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came to making Empire, did you feel like pressure to follow up Humanity?
No, I wouldn't say pressure, because we were still so young, and at that point we didn't know if the band, you know, like we weren't taking it as seriously as obviously we do now. It was just, we were just young, and we were just enjoying writing music together, and yeah, it was just fun. Like, there was no pressure whatsoever, because truthfully we didn't think anything would ever come of it.
Yeah.
We're just writing songs that we enjoy and that was inspired by bands we loved, and that's just, still to this day, that's sort of still our attitude, but it's just a lot more serious now. And
awesome. And with the first 2 albums, did you like start touring like outside of like Scotland and the UK, or was it still local?
it was still just in Scotland pretty much, and I think the first time we ever played outside of Scotland was in Manchester, but that was just like a show that one of our friends back home had put on down south. So it was like basically 3 bands from Glasgow travelled down to play a show in Manchester, and there was no one there. I remember that. And then the first time we ever played in London was, do you know, I don't remember the date, man, but definitely for a good 3, 4, 5 years we only played in Glasgow.
Oh wow. But then moving on to the next album, Uprising. I love this album, and I noticed like with the first two albums, like they were like did back to back like a year apart. But I know this was like 3 years after that. Did you want to take your time to make when you came time to making Uprising?
Yeah, there was just no pressure. Like back then, it was just like, you know, there was no like record label chasing. You need to do this, you need to do that. It wasn't until we released this that's when we signed to Century Media. There was also an issue after those first two albums, which I can't really go into, but it kind of stopped us from releasing music for a while. And then the same thing happened after Uprising. So we've kind of had a bit of a good run of bad luck back then around the Uprising album.
Yeah, I know that this year is also 10 years since this album came out. So how do you feel about it now, 10 years later? So like the album?
Yeah, I mean I do, man, but honestly, see, when I think back to those times, it's sort of like tarnished with all the negative stuff that went on back then. There was like, basically the band was pretty much, after Uprising, the band was pretty much done. We pretty much agreed that maybe we're just going to call it a day, because we got into some like legal issues that I can't really go into, but with record labels, management, blah blah. But yeah, it's just sort of tarnished with all that negative stuff. When I think about the good stuff back then, even though there was great times, it wasn't really until we released Era that we were just like, this one. I feel like this is when we became in control of our own band.
Yeah, and that was like the reason for the 5-year gap between Fracture and Era.
Yeah, and the same thing happened with a previous record label before Uprising, and that's why there was a 3-year gap.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and I didn't know. Oh yeah, that shit that happened with the album.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, me too, man. I mean, like, we just had a bit of bad luck. I'm sure loads and loads of other bands have experienced this type of thing, but yeah, it wasn't until we released Era that we are now a strong unit, and that stuff will never happen to us again, because we won't allow it, because we know the warning signs to look out for now.
Yeah, and then going into the next album, Fracture, one of my favorite albums from 2020. I mean, what was that like? I know it was interesting because of the certain virus that shall not be named.
Yeah.
And tell me about like making this album.
That was honestly one of the funnest experiences in my life, making that album. I remember just it just felt like a huge step up.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you just mentioned, what happened, like, we were kind of toying, we were advised to maybe not release the album during COVID. I just named it, I'm sorry. We were advised to maybe not release the album then and wait till we can tour it, but we were like, do you know what, now more than ever people need music, and people have the time to sit and listen to music, and I think it was probably the best decision we ever made, because the amount of people I've had coming up to us, even on this tour, and saying that album got them through that time. That's the biggest compliment you could receive as a musician. Someone telling you that your music has helped them in any way at all is just the biggest compliment you could ever receive.
Yeah, it's still like, I remember hearing like the song Night Crossing. I love the video where it's like all of you in like a Zoom chat.
Yeah.
You had like Matt from Tribute doing, I guess.
Yeah.
So how'd you end up getting him to do a solo?
So basically, when we released the album before that, Era, he was posting about the band quite a lot on social media and saying that he's been loving the album. So when we were writing Fracture, we were just like, why don't we just ask Matt to get involved and do something? Obviously I grew up on Ascendancy and stuff, and it was just such a cool experience. And yeah,
and I especially think the video had like a fun time. I remember how Craig had that sign saying "Stop calling me Ali."
Yeah,
because I think they not gonna lie, they look like they could be related.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a long ginger hair though. Maybe it's just because I've known them for a long time, I don't see the similarities, but I do understand why people say it, but it does happen a lot.
Yeah, same thing. I know, like Davey and Steven almost look alike too.
You think? Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I know that Steven also incorporated a lot of started doing clean vocals with you, and I think that his voice along with your voice really go along together.
Because I remember like that discussion, and I wanted to start doing more like clean, like melodic choruses and stuff, and do you know what, it was never to be like, I want the band to be more successful. It was because I wanted to push myself as a vocalist, and I wanted to challenge myself, because I didn't want to do the same thing over and over again. And I also love
the next evolution.
Yeah, I love melody. I love melody so much, so I really wanted to start incorporating that in our sound. So when we got to the studio to start doing that, I was trying to like sing it first, and I was like, this is not really. I just don't like the sound of my voice, so I was doing more of the sort of pitch screaming.
Yeah.
But then it just didn't feel like it was melodic enough. So Stephen like started singing underneath me pitch screaming, and his clean voice with my pitch screaming, it just gelled together so well, and that's why we've just stuck with that since.
Yeah, I think he's a great singer, especially with his him and From Sorrow to Serenity. And
Yeah.
I've never seen like in Temple of Lunacy. I think he's just amazing
Stephen's a phenomenal singer.
singer. And
Yeah,
of
he's
course
great.
now he's here with the latest album, Trying. I love this album, but what was that like? Because now you're back on the road again. What was the thought process making the new album?
Oh, it was incredible, man. Like the last two have just been honestly like. I actually find it hard to pick which one I like the best from those two, because Fracture just holds such a special place in my heart. But I do think with Shrine, we've written some of the best songs we've ever written in our career.
Yeah, and it's been out for like a year now. So how do you feel about the overall like reception of it?
It's been great, man. Like, we did our headline tour in Europe just at the end of last year, and I would say the songs from Shrine are going down way better than any of this previous stuff. Like the crowd singing, like Levitate is like the crowd singing that chorus was just unreal.
Yeah, I definitely like feel, especially since now you're back from of course the pandemic, since you've been touring a while. Is there like a difference experience now touring wise from post pandemic before to pre pandemic?
I think people that come to shows are like just really grateful now. I feel like it's taught all of us a lot about like just appreciating things more, you know, and enjoying time with your friends, enjoying time at shows, experiences, anything like that. It just definitely makes me feel more grateful, and I just feel like that's coming across from people as well at shows.
Yeah, and I see and I just love like your entire discography, especially with the newer direction. Is that something that you want to try to maybe experiment more try to like do something different like with future albums?
I think we're just going to write whatever comes out, whatever sounds good is what's going to make it on the album, and we try not to think too much about it. I mean, definitely on Shrine there was a lot more like melody, especially in the vocals, but that was because I sort of started doing it a little bit more on Fracture. I really was feeling it, and I wanted to do it a lot more in the next album. But the next one, who knows? But we've already got a few ideas knocking around, and it is super heavy, so.
Yeah, and I know we just, as we mentioned, this is your first ever U.S. tour. Is there like any countries that you really want to tour next?
We need to get out to Australia, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people commenting on our page and stuff, asking us to go there for quite a long time. So honestly, just anywhere. I just want to play shows. I don't care where it is. I'm just so happy to be here, though. So
yeah, try to eventually play all the continents, and try to maybe do it Antarctica. I know Metallica did it. I can do it.
I don't see us doing. We're not as big as Metallica.
Who knows? It could.
But also not as good as Metallica. I love Metallica.
Yeah. So before we go, I just want to thank you.
Thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure.
To finally talk to you. I know you're on this awesome tour right now. Is just anything else you want to plug?
Just come out to one of the shows in this tour, and yeah, I just want to meet everyone, hang out, play shows, and have a good time. So yeah, come out to check the dates, come out to some dates in this tour. Also, in fact, there is something I want to plug. We're doing 2 headline shows. Where's my phone? I don't remember them.
Yeah, I think it was Knoxville and one other.
Knoxville and.
I'm trying to go to the Knoxville date. If possible, fingers crossed. And
Can you just put the dates up on the screen?
yeah, we'll just edit it right there.
Cheers.
So everybody, Scott from Bleed From Within. We'll see you next time.